Hello there, guys. How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day because today we're going to talk about what seems to be a new Giga leak from Nintendo, revealing all sorts of information about the Pokemon franchise and the future of Pokemon. But more importantly to me, potentially the code name of the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course, this name of Giga Leak is something that I think the internet has really bestowed upon this scenario. And for anyone who remembers, I don't know, a few years ago, there was kind of a big, massive Nintendo dump leak situation, and that was also referred to as a Giga Leak. So I guess some people are looking at this as like Giga Leak 2, Giga Leak the sequel, whatever. The name really doesn't mean anything to me. It's just a funny thing that the internet, like I said, kind of refers to this as, because yes, the big story going on that kind of popped off yesterday is that a huge leak, I guess mostly related to Pokemon. I only looked so far into this because Pokemon is not a franchise I follow or really care too much about. But because of all this stuff leaking via the Pokemon franchise and hinting towards the future of the franchise, one of the things that was also found within this is something that apparently, not confirmed, but certainly very believable, apparently hints at what the code name for the Switch 2 might be, and it's not Switch 2, it's potentially the code name of Ounce. So in a weird way, I'm kind of glad for the timing of this story happening yesterday and allowing me to make this video today, because this is happening right before I go out of town for work for a couple of days, and I'm going to be able to squeeze this video out and get it posted and empty my head of the thoughts I have around the idea of the Switch 2 name being leaked right before I'm gone for a few days. So hopefully this gives you guys something to enjoy. I know everyone under the sun is making a video about this and talking about it on Twitter and online. You know, I made a vague tweet about it yesterday and that was about it. But I want to, of course, throw my own 2 cents into the ring here because I find this stuff fascinating and I love following Nintendo. And whatever the Switch 2 is going to be amazing. So having what could be a code name for it, while it doesn't necessarily tell us anything about the system, it's potentially a huge step towards actually learning what the thing will eventually be. Now, to go back to this, I mentioned this here in the first minute or so of this video, I just have to reaffirm to a lot of you guys who maybe don't already know this about me, is that I'm not a Pokemon fan. I have nothing against Pokemon. I've tried it one time, and a lot of my friends are into Pokemon. My wife is a Pokemon fan. It's just not for me. It's never appealed to me. The one time I tried it, the general conceit of the story and the gameplay and just the Pokemon themselves, they just don't do anything for me. So nothing against it. Not every franchise or series of a movie or a game or whatever has to appeal to everybody. And even as a huge Nintendo fan, yeah, Pokemon is not for me. I don't play it. So all of this stuff talking about the future of Pokemon games and all these other leaks, you know, I've heard a couple of people talk about it and I've read some things on Twitter, but I don't really know what they mean and I have no investment in them. So this is kind of the disclaimer I'm giving at the beginning of this conversation to let you guys know, as a non-Pokemon fan, I'm not talking about Pokemon in this video, other than this brief section where I tell you that I just don't know anything about Pokemon. There's that Pokemon AZ game that's coming out next year, one of the 2 big Nintendo games we know coming out in 2025. Pokemon AZ, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, the thing giving me life right now. And so other than these games, other than that game, I don't really know anything about Pokemon, so that's where we are with that. Now I want to talk about the interesting stuff to me, which is the Switch 2. So, like I said, apparently contained within all of these leaks are references to either a Pokemon game or maybe even multiple Pokemon games, some sort of Pokemon title that might be being developed for both the Switch and the Switch 2, the current and the next generation. And so there is an abbreviation for that references OZ, right? And that is an abbreviation for Ounce. So there's been a lot of discussion on if that's referring to the code name for the Switch 2, because a title being developed for OZ, a title being developed for Ounce or Ounces, singular or plural, and that might be, that's the thing everyone says, maybe this is now the code name for the Nintendo Switch 2, is Ounce or Ounces. Now, even though this is exciting in many ways, it is worth noting, I mean, let's be realistic about this thing. How much does a codename ever tell us about a console? How much would the codename of Ounce tell us about the Switch 2? The answer is basically nothing. If you look at the history of codenames for consoles, literally the only one that ever really meant anything significant was Revolution, which was the code name for the Wii that was revealed in, I want to say it was E3 2005, the year after I had attended. Satoru Iwata pulled the damned Nintendo Wii out of his frickin' coat and held that tiny thing up and said, this is our Nintendo Revolution. It's our next console. It's going to change gaming. And in a lot of ways, the Wii and the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck and that whole motion control gimmick that they created did make a huge impact in gaming. And in a lot of ways, we do still feel that today. But other code names, Project Cafe was the name for the Wii U. I mean, other than the idea of maybe getting people together to hang around somewhere and play something together, like on the gamepad, that didn't really mean anything. The damned Xbox One X was called the Scorpio. Was it the PlayStation 4 that was called the Morbius? Or maybe that was the PSVR. I don't know. PlayStation Morbius was a code name for something in the last, 8 or 9 years. The Nintendo NX. That didn't mean anything. It was just the Switch. What the hell does NX mean? Maybe next, but we don't really know that, so that was just very random. The Kinect was called, Nadal, I think was the code name for the Kinect. These code names don't mean anything. The Dolphin for the GameCube, what does that mean? Dolphins are fish. Well, they're mammals, I guess, but, they're sea creatures. And that's not anything to do with the GameCube. So you can start to bend and stretch your line of thinking and try to make connections where they don't exist, like I sort of did with Project Cafe and Wii U. But in general, they don't mean anything. What is the ounce going to mean? How much will the Nintendo Switch 2 weigh? How much will the games weigh, Is every game going to be called Metroid Ounce, Super Mario Ounce, The Legend of Zelda Ounce, Mario Kart Ounce? That's not going to happen. So this is a long-winded way for me to say, when you look at the history of code names, they're always fascinating, and it certainly makes a next-generation console feel more real and tangible. That's the exciting part. But the name, other than one time with the Wii, has never actually hinted at or meant anything to what the final product is going to be. And so the only other element of this to focus on is, like I had just mentioned, the fact that if this is real, if this is the code name for the console, might be happening with these leaks, not confirmed again, but certainly seems very plausible, the fact that it exists at all and we might have a code name, however weird and abstract as it might be, it suddenly brings the system even more into focus. Just like for years we were theorizing and speculating about Switch 2, next-gen Switch, and then earlier this year, Nintendo made an official tweet that they're going to show us the next-generation successor sometime this year or early next year. So that was a huge step in making the Switch 2 feel real and tangible. Now, if this code name turns out to be a real code name, again, the word ounce doesn't mean anything to us right now, but if it's the code name, it's another step to making it feel real. Just like when we knew the GameCube was called the Dolphin, the Wii U was called Project Cafe, the One X was called Scorpio, it feels real. And that is what's exciting, because it's we're getting that much closer, especially because if this is real, it also means it leaked. Nintendo didn't tell us, they announced the Switch was called the NX in 2015 or 2016. That was an announced code name. If this is real, the Nintendo Ounce or whatever this is, it's a leak. And that means it's coming to us from a very different scenario or way that it's coming to us, as opposed to Nintendo or any company confirming it. I mean, even Microsoft called the One X the Scorpio, if I remember correctly. That wasn't a hidden code name. This is coming to us via a secret, so maybe this is going to continue to change Nintendo's game plan. If they have a problem with this getting out, maybe they need to address us sooner than later. Ultimately, as somebody who's not a Pokemon fan, and I apologize to you Pokemon fans, I can't dive into any of that stuff here. There's actually not much more for me to talk about in this video, because 90% of this whole leak situation, Giga Leak, really was just about Pokemon stuff. And that's really exciting for Pokemon fans. I wish I was one, because I would probably be very excited. If something like this happened around the Metroid franchise, you know me, I'd make a 27-minute video talking about all of that stuff. So I don't have the knowledge or history with Pokemon to even talk about it intelligently, let alone the fact that I'm not passionate about it. The code name for the Switch, OZ, Ounce, if that's what any of this means. It's exciting. Not because it tells us anything about the console, like I said, but because suddenly it feels more real. Give me a code name. What was the code name for Mario Sunshine? Was Mario 128 the code name for Sunshine or for Mario 64? I'm old enough that I should know this off the top of my head. I'm 99% sure Mario 128 was like the tech demo of a bunch of 128 Marios running around like a globe or whatever that ended up becoming the tech that would then become Mario Sunshine, the first new 3D Mario game developed for the GameCube, which would have been the Dolphin at the time, right? So again, it is really fun to go back and track the history of code names for projects within the video game world, right? If it's a console, if it's a game or whatever. I mean, you know, I remember even Fable, the first Fable game for the Xbox, that had a code name of Project Ego. Some people might not remember, but I was reading magazines, working for GameStop at the time as an assistant manager, and Project Ego was this big ambitious thing from Microsoft, and it turned out to be renamed as Fable, and then it released as Fable. And now there's a Fable franchise, and there's a new Fable game being made. So, you know, the history of codenames is fascinating, but they very rarely tell us anything. So I'm excited just to have what might be a code name. We still need to even learn if it's real, so let's at least leave a little bit of space in our brains to learn that this isn't the code name for the Switch 2 and we've all been kind of duped. But it feels fairly legitimate, so it is exciting. So now we wait to see if this convinces Nintendo to reveal the darn thing sooner than later.